Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 3, Episode 8, Just for Sidekicks. No, you're not seeing things out of order. As described previously, we're seeing these in this order because it works better for the narrative, and having seen the previous episode and having actually done this time around, I can now say that with absolute and total certainty. This is the episode which has a connective point to the games ponies play. While the rest of the main six are off at the Crystal Empire setting up for the Equestrian Game sponsorship, here Spike is taking care of their pets back in Ponyville, or rather, not taking care of them. What happens is shenanigans and hijinks until Spike learns his lesson. I have to admit, this is one of the better Spike episodes, which probably says something about that. Oh, yes, also time compression happens in this episode while we're here. Because, why wouldn't it? This episode is written by someone who I'm going to tell you about in just a second. It's going to be written by Corey Powell, which is the guest writer. I've actually mentioned him a couple times. He just kind of moves in and moves out and does his own thing. He did Sleepless in Ponyville already, and that was a pretty good episode overall. I would say this is at least an above-average episode. I'm willing to put that stamp on it. And considering that this is a Spike episode, that's actually pretty impressive. The opening of this episode starts off with, let's just get this out of the way. Pee-wee, Screwy, and Donut Joe are the three major points of continuity in this episode, so we're adding to three tickers to the continuity counter, which puts us up to 51. I just want to jump at that, because a few times I've forgotten to do that on camera, and I don't want to forget doing that. So you're thinking, who the heck is Pee-wee? Pee-wee's the Phoenix. The baby Phoenix. The episode starts on a loving pan of several photos, which, in order, tell a story of Pee-wee hatching, and then, having fun with Spike, and getting into some ice cream shenanigans, and then having to go back to her parents, or his parents, or whatever. It was nice to see that little follow-through there, but I actually admit I'm a little sad. I think the inclusion of a Phoenix around here would be actually pretty cool. Maybe they thought it would be unnecessary, especially with Aloysius. Maybe they thought making a Phoenix toy would be too difficult to sell. I don't know. But either way, Pee-wee's gone. Poor Pee-wee. So, Spike then starts making a cake and eating the ingredients as he's making the cake. Anybody ever have that problem? For once, I have to admit that I do not have that problem. I don't get that. Never been a thing for me. And I've made plenty of sweet things with sweet things that you can eat before you finish. Hell, I made that Tyrus Folk the Lost Pie just about a month ago at this point. And I had no problem waiting on that until after. And I had like chocolate chips and whipped cream and Oreos that I could have eaten beforehand. But nope, I just waited. Is it just me? I'm actually kind of curious here. Now, granted, Spike's a kid. He's a baby dragon, I do get that. And obviously Spike doesn't have as much self-control as, me. But even when I was younger, like, cooking, one of the reasons that I got into cooking originally, and I actually started taking cooking classes, is because that was my job back in the house. Mom was working all the time. So the person who cleaned and cooked was me. I was the one who kept up the house, or the apartment, rather. So even when I was young, I never actually had this issue. That's why I'm wondering if anybody else did. A few people did, apparently, according to Zachariah Jebediah. Hope you got that Discord invite, by the way. Snacking while cooking. I think I have done that, but usually I do that specifically to prevent myself from having a headache, because I know the food's not going to be ready for like 30 minutes, and I'm hungry now. So it's just, it's so hard to sympathize with Spike, as he's just like, nom, 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 nom. Where'd all my gems go? Total lack of self-awareness. Until Aloysius has to point out, it was me. By the way, apparently gems leave a residue. Sure. Yeah, I didn't like Spike that much this episode. In fact, even his I learned a lesson thing just seems way last minute and just kind of unearned. I don't know. It's still an above average episode, so I'm willing to give it some credits. It's just Spike didn't really work for me. Aloysius, he was awesome. But I'm getting at it. Oh, and then of course, why? So Spike wasn't invited to go help with the Equestrian Games thing. Of course, Savicom. Now, we could come up with reasons why that is, especially with the advantage of hindsight. I'd just like to say, and this is just my own personal thoughts on the matter. Oh, there's a little Phoenix pet. It's really tiny. Is that Dr. Fluttershy? Oh my god, really? God, those look terrible, too. Anyways. What was I saying? It's obvious in hindsight that what was happening here is she didn't want everyone to be completely gaga over Spike the Brave and Glorious. But the thing is, I think that, remember, they didn't have Season 4 planned when they were making these episodes. In fact, they didn't have them planned. They weren't even sure they were going to make a Season 4 when they were doing the bare bones scripting of these episodes, right? I talked about that last time. This is partially irrelevant here because it's my opinion that from an out-of-character perspective, Spike the Brave and Glorious didn't exist yet. It wasn't an idea they'd come up with. It was something they came up with after the fact. In other words, we'll talk a lot more about this when it gets to Season 4, but I think a lot of Season 4 is a good examples of backloaded storytelling. Okay, now what? Well, let's go look at what we've already done and see where we can take plot threads and move them forward. Because that's a lot of Season 4 is, here's a continuation of this idea, here's an acknowledgement of this concept, here's this thing being pushed forward, etc. That's just my opinion. I don't actually know if that's true or not. Either way, Spike is going, He doesn't do that when he actually goes to the Crystal Empire, though. He didn't last time either, for that matter. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. So, Fluttershy comes by, and apparently Seraphim is now Fluttershy. Yeah, I know, right, Darth Tyrant? Because, yeah, Season 4 is a pretty good one, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Fluttershy, a.k.a. Seraphim, comes by. He's like, hey. And she's awesome, as she always is, but she wants someone to cover for Angel. And Spike's just like, yeah, I'm just sad that I don't have delicious gem cake. Also, you remember that gem cupcake from several episodes ago? Secret of My Excess? I wonder what a gem cake would be like. Again, the world builder in me, the guy who loves taking mundane concepts in fantastical elements, would love the idea of a gem cake or a jewel cake. By the way, yes, someone linked this to me. I think it was YouTube or something like that in one of the comments, that there actually is someone out there who has made an actual jewel cupcake, with something that's actually edible for us human beings. So, cool idea, but I'm getting off topic again. Sorry, my brain's having trouble kicking to first gear. I had the massive discussion about politics, and now we're just talking about a silly episode about pet sitting. There's not a lot to talk about here. But what there is to talk about is that Angel's probably one of the, I'd say the second, maybe third least irritating of all of these, characters. Of all the pets, I mean. Which is probably sad when you think about it. Angel's not that terrible in this episode. But yeah, if Angel wasn't a brat, we wouldn't have had the entire episode, which is something else to add on top of things. But despite that, Angel is still not as bad as Opal. I get it. That's the joke. Opal's a cat. Cats are picky. Haha. And of course, Opal is the pet of Rarity, who's picky. I get it. Haha. Opal actually irritates me almost the entire episode, even though Opal only gets a couple little cameos. It's just amusing. But I'm getting off topic yet again. Freaking Opal. Angel, there's this great part, though. Angel walks up to Spike. Now, if you remember, Angel and Spike actually have a tiny bit of history in a previous episode. I forget the name of it. Yeah, Angel's afraid of the owl. That was a nice touch. The bunny is afraid of the owl. I don't know if they're trying to actually go with the whole, owls hunt small critters aspect of there, or just trying to show Aloysius as something to be, more disciplinary than Spike. But either way, it worked very well for both accounts, and it was a nice little touch. As Fluttershy and Spike are talking, the camera went down here to focus on them and their little things, which is always a nice thing to see in television too. If you're going to get off some exposition, there's like a dozen ways to do that properly, and one of those ways is to have the camera focus on something more interesting while the exposition is happening, which is what they do with Angel and Aloysius. So, looking at my notes, you might want to think about a helmet. You only want to get hit in the head by a flying turtle once. Okay, episode, you got a couple laughs out of me with that one. I'll give you that one. Pong! And he does actually get a helmet later, which was probably a good idea. He apparently offered... Now, this is an interesting bit. There's this bit where Applejack is actually the last one to show up as he's running around trying to get everyone to pet sit. Applejack is the last one who shows up. And she says, hey, you said you're still going to be able to take care of Winona, right? A couple things I want to point out about Winona. First of all, he apparently agreed to take care of Winona first. Like, that was something that was predisposed before he'd even been approached by Fluttershy and Angel. But I like how Winona is not only the only obedient one, but the one who is actually friendly towards Spike, openly friendly. Now, that makes sense for 3 reasons I'd just like to rush through really quick here. First, Winona's a dog. Nothing else to add to that. Second of all, Winona's a farm dog, a working dog. Winona's a helper. Very accustomed to working alongside people. And third, we know that Spike and Winona have already been friends and have interacted with each other over the last, 2 or 2.5 years, however long at this point. So it makes perfect sense that would be, just fine. But yeah, as Savicom says, Winona is probably more mature than Spike, literally. In fact, you'll notice several times the only reason Spike accomplishes several things is because of Winona. Also, the image of Winona just having the time of her life under the industrial scale hairdryer is really adorable. Anyways, so then the teaser happens. 9 minutes. We've been in this episode for 9 minutes now, and it finally showcases the teaser from the previous episode. Another reason I think this kind of ties up and works together with in the order that we're doing things here. Because Twilight's like, hey, why don't we go back? Oh, and we do know why she doesn't go back. It's because she's in a hurry to catch her train. But everything's under control. I got this. And then we actually see the chaos this time around rather than just the tree jumping up like it did last time. Oh yeah, sorry, Sean mentioned something. Unfortunately, sigh, I think this qualifies as a rarity crush. It's really tiny, but it's enough there that it's worth noting, because as Sean points out, and as someone else pointed out earlier, when Rarity starts giving her instructions for Opal, that's part of the joke, Spike immediately and unhesitatingly leaps to command of writing down all the details of what Opal needs. He never does them, but he does give Rarity that extra bit of attention, which qualifies as a crush, therefore qualifying. So the pets make a huge, big ol' mess. I think that's true, Savicom. Although I actually have another thought about the gem that she gives him. I should mention that all of them give him a gem. I wrote it down. Fluttershy gave a big green emerald. Rainbow Dash offered a smaller orange, uncut-looking gem. Rarity offered this tiny but very well cut red jewel. Pinky gives a blue medium jewel, which is like an oboling, and then Twilight gives a pink, very well carved gem. I just want to mention that, because that's actually going to come up later, believe it or not, because we're going to talk about economics. Again, look, what do you want from me? Everything looks like a nail to me, okay? But before we get to that discussion, I do want to talk about the pets making a massive mess and the fact that I'm apparently a robot. This is funny because just last night, one of my friends was telling me how he was going to be picking up... don't you want skydiving cutie marks, Loader? Just last night, one of my friends was talking about buying 2 cats. Sorry, adopting 2 cats. And I actually made a comment, which was something along the lines of, why? And the response that was given was so that the cat has a friend, as a playmate. And I'm like, no, why get the first cat to begin with? And there was this pause. And then they started to make fun of me for like 15 minutes solid for asking that question. So apparently I'm an inhuman robot, guys, because I don't really get the pets thing. Not at this point in my life. I don't. I'm not actually joking. I'm not actually memeing. If I sat down, I could easily afford a pet right now. I'm actually in a no-pet building. But, if I was, I'd be like, why? I mean, I know companionship and someone there and someone to take care of and blah, 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 blah. But I just couldn't do that at this point in my life. It's just not something that equates to me. And there's many reasons why. And this episode, ironically, shows several of them, which just occurred to me several times throughout watching it. Anyways, so then Spike tries to pawn off everyone, all of the pets, onto the Cutie Mark Crusaders so they can get pet sitting Cutie Marks, which ironically would probably work a lot better than skydiving Cutie Marks. Just saying. Also, skydiving. At least they go to the nearby bridge to get the skydiving marks. Something, you know. I mean, I get cute kittens, but that's what the internet's for. So, the Cutie Mark... I love the bit where he's like, he tries to pawn it off. Now, this is basically when Spike makes his big mistake. What Spike wants is to get all the reward with none of the cost. He wants to be, and I swear I'm not trying to make this an economic thing, but he tries to be a typical corporate mogul. He tries to be an executive. I want all of the profit with none of the work. So, he wants to get all the gems and have them do all the work for him. Now, it is actually Apple Bloom who calls him out on that. And what's funny is at first it seems like she's just trying to be just as conniving as him. You know, it might cost you a little something. But he says, I don't have any jewels. And that's when she actually gets a little angry. Goes, I know for a fact you have several jewels. And Applejack already gave you a gem in order to take care of Winona. And Spike's like, fine, here, have a jewel. And he gives them the rarity jewel, the tiny red one. They then use the tiny red... They accept that as acceptable payment and use it to buy the industrial scale hairdryer. Now, obviously, that's a joke, but hear me out for just a second. We know that they use jewels as a form of currency, but that's not actually their currency. Similar to how in real life, you know, I could give you stuff in a barter system, but it won't be money. You know, it will not be dollars or euros or pesos or rubles or whatever, right? There's a difference between hard currency and something that's an acceptable barter item. Now, I bring this up because, by the way, thank you, Seraphim. I hope I'm being entertaining right now because I'm about to go into the economic thing. Jewels in the MLP setting are fully more of a barter system kind of a concept. They don't actually exist with hard connection to currency. However, there is an obvious valuation between what's better and what's worse when it comes to the gems. Now, this is important because it's obviously not just carrots. Yes, I do, Zobe. Everything I stream goes up on YouTube. It's not just carrots, because each one of the gems is of substantially different size, and yet the one that is shown to have the most tangible value is the dinky little red one. It is also worth noting, however, that other than the pink one that Twilight gives him, the dinky red one is the one that is the best carved. It has actually been clearly stylized to make a specific shape. And on top of that, is implied to have some value other than simply its size. Maybe it's the type of facets, maybe it's the specific rarity of that exact type of gem, maybe there's something in it that is not shown tangibly. But I mention this because it is something that is clearly shown to have a substantial amount of, again, tangible value. This is an interesting thing to think about. I actually really wish the episodes would go more into this. Like, I don't want MLP to sit down and say, all right, kids, this is a ruby and it's worth more than a diamond because such and such. But at the same time, I do have to point out that you can push this kind of thing into the background. They do, actually. If you remember, there's a previous episode, I think it's actually Diamond Dogs, where she goes to get an entire bundle. Maybe it wasn't Diamond Dogs. No, it wasn't that one. It was a Sweetie Belle episode. There's an episode where she has an entire basket of blue diamonds. And she's treating them like they're dollars, right? Relatively low value. Pretty, but they're only pretty for this exact project she's doing. Stuff like that helps to differentiate the relative value, right? Now, Loner says it's valuable because Rarity gave it to him. Possible. That doesn't explain how the Cutie Mark Crusaders get such value out of its usage, though, which is why I say it has a tangible value attached to it. Now, Sierra Mike is already going in the direction... Oh, Sierra Mike and Dream Whisperer, excuse me, are already going in the direction that I'm going in. Given that this is a literal magical setting and we know that magical jewels exist, it's entirely possible that some gems resonate better with magic. This is actually something I use in my own setting, the extant, where certain materials work better as enchantment, enchantment components than others. I mean, you could enchant a stick of wood or a slab of steel or a jewel with the exact same spell, but each of those is going to interact and react with it differently because of the material involved. Ergo, you get the idea that these gems could be presented in such a manner. Now, this could also mean that the other gems are more valuable. Here's the interesting problem here, and this is where the non-hard currency part of this comes in, because what happens is the only time that Spike does any actual tangible financial interaction with that gem is when he goes ahead and gives that one gem to them, and the Cutie Mark Crusaders use it to buy the hairdryer. That's it. I agree, Darth Tyron. I don't have a full list, Savacom. I haven't gone down the periodic table, no. But I could tell you some things off the top of my head. I'm not going to bore you with it, of course. Anyways, because everything else is just a bribe. Now, I suppose there is the train ticket. I will talk about the train ticket in a second. I want to do that one last, because it's actually the second to last bribe he tosses out. But you'll notice what's happening from Spike's perspective is he is using the gems to make his problems go away. He's not actually trying to buy things or have, standard economic things. They are, again, in base terminology, they are bribes. Here, go away. Here, deal with this. Here, haplets. In fact, ironically, that is exactly how he deals with the Cutie Mark Crusaders. The only reason that's an actual economic transaction is because of how they use it, not how he uses it. This, again, kind of lines itself up with the idea of the barter system, which we'll actually be covering in, I think, Season 4. Has the big barter episode, which is a great episode, by the way. Because barter, by definition, is really just how much both people agree something is worth, which is an obviously horrifically malleable thing. You'll also notice, however, that the way it's being presented in each case is Spike just kind of going down the list because he's trying to make his problems go away. You'll also notice that he gives away the smallest gems first and the largest gem last. Now that makes perfect sense, and you're probably thinking, why? Because the value to him has nothing to do with magical currents or facets or the specific type of gem or its rarity or anything else. The only thing Spike cares about is pure quantity, because this is food to him. He wants more food. This is why he keeps the giant green emerald for last. So the value in his case is very linear and clear. Everyone else's value we can only speculate on. It's interesting that thought was actually put into this concept thing. He does actually get to eat the emerald too. It's the only one he gets to eat of all the ones, of all the gems he goes through. Now, we do know that other ponies do value those gems because of actually 3 total interactions that really help showcase that they care about the value of the gems. I already told you the first. That's with the Cutie Mark Crusaders. The second is actually with Zecora. Now, this kind of irritates me a little bit, but this is something Sean brought up earlier, and this is something that needs to be addressed. It is possible that Spike was at the beginning edges of, for lack of a better way to put it, dragon greed. That he was at the point where he was starting to have that problem hitting him, and it might help to explain some of his earlier attitude. Because in the early part of the episode, when he's going around offering his services to everyone, he does get a little bit mafia-y, as Seraphim kind of pointed out earlier. Hey, here's this, make this go away. And the inverse, yeah, sure, I'll watch you pay for you. It's gonna cost you, though. Maybe like 1 gem there, huh? Like, he gets actually downright pushy. In fact, when it gets to the point where Twilight says, are you going to have time to look after Aloysius? He says, of course, but, paying customers, they gotta have priority. You know what I mean? So, he gets kind of that way as he's getting this. So it is actually within the possibility that dragon greed is a thing. Zecora, of course, knows what dragon greed is. She was involved in the last time. And she just takes one of his gems and flat out gives it away to the scouts. Which is yet another... There's a lot of cameos in this episode, by the way. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw that, that actually pissed me off, because she doesn't help him at all, and actively takes away from what he's been wanting. But on the other hand, he's been wanting to get things for nothing, which is the first problem. He's also been trying to shovel things down, you know, just shovel things out the window to bribe his way to victory, which is the second problem. And the third problem, as we just brought up, it's entirely possible the dragon greed thing was actually happening. We don't know. There's no clear indication, because the only clear indication of dragon greed is the growth, when he actually becomes larger and less intelligent. So he does get a taste of his own medicine, and it does actually work pretty well within the contents of the episode. Does that count as continuity? Absolutely. There's actually a decent amount of continuity in this episode. In fact, I think I didn't count that one, did I? So we're going to push that up to 52 now. There we go. Now, one other bit of continuity while we're on the subject. I mentioned Screwy. Screwy, so you remember the episode where they first introduced Daring Do? It was back in Season 2, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I know, right, Dream Whisperer? And back in... No kidding, Zygmus. He's probably growing, going through a growth spurt. I'm serious, he probably actually is. Screwy is the pony who thinks she's a dog. That's right, that's the one. It's the episode where Rainbow's like, oh god, I gotta escape. Har, 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 har. And there's this pan over and Screwy's there barking. There's this really nice, very brief tidbit during a panning shot where Screwy, who is looking much more sane and much more, collected, is chatting with one of the nurse ponies. That right there is the kind of continuity I really eat up. I mean, I love string continuity. I love stories that cover multiple episodes and stuff. But what I really dig is that kind of background continuity that helps make things more fleshed out and flavored. That stuff, I just eat that up. Because what we see in that very brief cameo pan-over is that she's doing better. That she started improving, that the nurse is still checking up on her, and that they're friendly talking, showing that, they have a working relationship going forward. That's all. We get all that just from one quick panning shot. Love that thing. I love that kind of stuff. And I hope we see more of it going forwards. But anyways. So. Yeah, continuity is my gem cake, except I don't eat it as I'm making it because I'm not Spike. I can't even say it because I'm young, because like I said, I didn't have that problem when I was young either. Hi, Mr. Red. So, now to have some heroin. Nom, nom, nom. You eat heroin, right? That's how you do that? I actually don't know how you take heroin. Don't tell me. I don't care. So, he bribes, and then he bribes his way to victory, and each time things get worse for him. Which then leads to the part where Angel splits off, rushes on to the train. It's like... heroic epic music plays as Angel gets to the train, and it's like, ah, crap. So he's like, okay, I gotta go on the train to find the bunny. I was like, no, I can't have this many animals on without chaperones. Now, let's pause for a second to acknowledge that the only reason that this is a thing is because they needed to get the Cutie Mark Crusaders on the train. However, this is kind of messed up if you think about it for a second, because that means he considered Spike to not be a sufficient chaperone for the animals. Now you're probably thinking, well, yeah, Spike's young. The people who are considered acceptable chaperones are 3 young children. The Cutie Mark Crusaders. So... there's a couple of ways to look at this, but the way it's phrased is not great. The way it's actually stated in the episode, the actual dialogue, is not excellent. It's probably the quantity that is most likely what's actually happening here. The episode doesn't say that, which I think it probably should have. This many animals, I need more people to watch them. That's all they would have had to change the dialogue to. Instead, it comes across as being... I mean, dragons aren't really people, am I right? Anyways, it is probably the quantity thing. That is probably the direction we're going in. Spike does mention, is 3 enough? Afterwards, so that is evidence in that favor. And of course he has to pay for the train ticket, Sort of. I say sort of because he never gets a ticket. He just gives him a gem and gets on board. Which, again, kind of lines up with the whole barter system thing I've been banging on about this entire time. He doesn't actually procure a ticket. Or 4 tickets, as the case may be. Anywho, so all of this apparently happened within the course of a day. There's actually 2 things we can think on this. First of all, apparently this lends credence to the previous episode about the idea of why they were so unprepared and unpolished in their presentation to Miss Peachbottom. You know, that whole idea, right? You know, of, oh, it wasn't a rehearsed thing. Makes sense because they had a day to do it. Yeah, and that's it. Second thing I want to point out is we know that, I don't know how long it takes this train to go, but at the very least, this train can go to the Crystal Empire, come back, go to the Crystal Empire, and come back within the space of a day. Which is just, it says something about distance and the speed of the train, and blah, blah, blah. That's at a minimum, by the way. It could have made more trips than that, for all we know. You're probably thinking, why do you care? Well, A, I like geography, because I actually care about things like geographical continuity, even though I was actually blasted in a recent Star Trek episode for caring about geographical continuity and the speed at which warp is. I had a whole discussion about how warp is different speeds depending on the episode. Like, we can actually math it out and show that mathematically warp speed is different depending on individual episodes, even within a single show. And I got blasted for that because who gives a damn? It moves at the speed of plot. Shut up, lore. But I actually care about that kind of thing and actually maintaining that kind of continuity. So I was paying attention to that kind of thing. And it's also relevant for a second reason. Because they sit crouched underneath the benches staying very quiet for the entire ride back. Which brings up the question. How long back is that trip? Because that could get very crampy if it's too long. Anywho, the episode doesn't even address that, consequently. So, you know, they go there. We see what happens with the green gem from the previous episode. It could be braver. So, you know, the green gem. Ah, no, poor Angel. So we find out what's going on with that. Which brings me to, oh my god, can I kill you, Sierra Mike? Is that a thing that you'll allow? Just, it's okay, shh, Sierra Mike, shh. It's alright. No more pain. No more pain. The next thing... Ah, crap. Damn, I gotta destroy the whole planet now to kill Sierra Mike. Thanks, guys. You can all thank Sierra Mike for his horrible murder. The next thing I want to talk about is the bribe thing. Spike has been bribing his way to victory the whole episode, and it doesn't work with Angel. Now, I don't even know if this was deliberate, but I really like that. Because that is how it is in real life. Some people are not bribable. Some people, just by nature of their mentality or their personality or their motives and what it is they care about, you can't bribe them. Cannot. Doesn't even matter if you offer them what you want. Because you'll notice he doesn't just... He gives away gems to bribe most of the people in this episode. But he offers Angel things he knows Angel wants, and Angel just says no. Angel still doesn't accept any of the bribes that he is offering him or her. Like, you see the problem. You see, and I say problem. You see the idea there. In fact, what finally gets Angel to turn around is Spike just flat out admitting that he's wrong and that he's sorry. Which, admittedly, since we'll go and talk about that now, is probably the weakest part of the episode. Last minute, under the desks, having a conversation while they are literally less than a foot from the ponies they're hiding from, is when Spike learns a lesson and says, no, I'm sorry. I was only thinking about myself. And that is really the core lesson there. Spike was being selfish. That is the core problem. And yeah, it felt like the episode was being like, oh yeah, okay, we got to wrap it up now. Let's wrap it up. Come on, everyone go home. Lich King's waking up. Time to wrap up. Thank you very much, Luco. Appreciate and oblige the sub, sir. If you know where you want to put that, please let me know. Otherwise, horrible nuclear death will fall upon you. Courtesy of Sierra Mike. And then the episode ends. I didn't mention Donut Joe, but he's there. He's selling donuts, like you do. That's one of the other continuity points. This isn't exactly a great episode. Like I said, I'm willing to give this an above average, which I have. But ultimately, it's just kind of there. The things that elevate it are the fact that the episode legitimately made me laugh several times, and surprisingly good usage of connections and background continuity and stuff like that. Mega Man Zero, you've got it. So done, Luco. Thank you again. So that helps elevate it a little bit in my mind, which is good, because later on, in looks like 2 weeks from now, we're going to be covering Spike at Your Service.